Good morning. Today we are going to be looking at previewing our next unit, which is trade within the river valleys. What environmental impacts it had on trading. So today we're going to take a look at trade. What is trade? How is trade affected by the weather? How is trade affected by the climate? How is trade affected by people's choice? And I'm going to use an analogy with you of Halloween candy. And a lot of times, I remember when my sisters and I were younger, we would go trick or treating and we would bring home candy and we would trade candy. So that exchange of candy was candy for candy. It might be that 2 Tootsie Rolls equaled 1 Reese's peanut butter cup, but we would have our own exchange system. So I have on here for our warm up today, we are going to be looking at what was that? What was that? What did that mean for trading? And you'll see that as one of the questions that are in your slides. Which would you trade with? Which would you trade with me for and why? If I offered you something, which one of these, if they were in your treat bag, would you exchange? And there's a reason for that because we're going to talk about surveying that of people's preference. Today, you will be going to this link to Nearpod, and the Nearpod link will take you to some directions as to what we are going to be talking about. You'll be looking at the I can statements. What is it that you are going to accomplish in the next week or so in the unit? And it will also walk you through a couple activities that I'll ask you to do, and you can submit that. Next on our list is obviously the knowledge check. Please make sure to do that. And then lastly, some facts about exchanges. When we trade as an exchange between two parties, trade is vital to a person or a civilization's economy. You may have remembered that when COVID first struck and we shut everything down, how that trade affected all of us, our economy. Civilization started, obviously, we know that by the rivers, but those rivers were used for trade. It enabled them to trade and move and travel because they used the water system. Geographically, there were some areas that could be difficult to travel. We talked about the Himalayan mountains in India. We also talked about the Sahara Desert. They come up with some trade routes, and we'll talk more about that during this upcoming week. Humans adapt to their environment. Well, how does that affect trade? And I always love to give the example. I used to live in Key West, Florida, and I never owned a pair of socks because it was so hot. But when we moved here, I had to adapt to cooler temperature. So the first thing that I did was buy socks. And I laugh because I bought like $300 worth of socks. And the reason for that, is I had to adapt. I was no longer in flip-flops every day. I was now having to wear sneakers or tennis shoes with socks. Environmental impacts. What environmental impacts do the mountains have, the rivers have on trade? What happens if the water dries up in the river? How's that going to impact trade? As well as when we look at the monsoons and the wind. And you may remember, in map 3 in our last unit, it talked about the trade winds and the monsoons and those winds, how they affected the different types of year that you could go and travel. So with that being said, please make sure to do your knowledge check. I'll have all these slides up for you so that you can use them when you are doing your work. So if you have any questions, please make sure to give me a call or text me or email me. And have a great day. Thank you.